You learn pretty quickly, living this far out in rural Iowa, that the quiet is both your friend and your enemy. It wraps around you most nights like a blanket, soft, familiar, safe, but when something disturbs it, even slightly, it feels like the whole world is holding its breath, waiting for you to notice. That night, August 2018, the quiet broke with a sound I will never forget. 3 deliberate knocks, not frantic, not polite, just firm. I should probably back up. Cheryl and I own a farm in Buckingham, Iowa. Corn's our main crop, though we've dabbled in soybeans and a few other things over the years. We've both spent our entire lives in this world. Early mornings, aching backs, the rhythm of the seasons. There's beauty in it, sure, but also an isolation most people will never understand. Our nearest neighbors are about half a mile away in either direction. To the west, George and his wife, good people, salt of the earth, the kind who'd drop everything if you called in the middle of the night. To the east, Kenny and his wife, equally dependable. It's a small, quiet life, but it's ours. On this particular Saturday, George and his wife came over for drinks. The rain had started earlier in the evening, just a light drizzle, enough to make the air smell clean and the fields hum. With that wet, earthy scent, we played board games in the kitchen, a bottle of whiskey between us, laughter spilling out over the sound of rain tapping against the windows. By the time they left, it was about 11 p.m. Their drive home was all of 30 seconds, a straight shot on the gravel lane. Cheryl and I stayed up, sipping wine in the living room. The old farmhouse was warm, the rain pattering steady on the roof. On the TV, one of our favorite movies played. We were relaxed, sleepy, and definitely feeling the wine. We just settled deeper into the couch, thinking about dozing off right there when it happened. Knock, knock, knock. I frowned. Out here, unexpected knocks at night just don't happen. You call first. Always. I thought maybe it was my imagination, but then faint, almost lost beneath the rain. I heard it, a voice. I grabbed the remote and lowered the TV volume. Cheryl's eyes met mine, wide and questioning. For 20 seconds there was nothing, just the rain and our own breathing. Then it came again, 3 knocks, and a muffled voice. We need help. I started to stand, but Cheryl's hand shot out, gripping my arm. She shook her head, her mouth tightening into a thin line. I'm just going to ask who it is, I whispered. Her voice was urgent but low. Don't let them know we're here. Odds are they already do, I whispered back. I stepped toward the door, every creak of the wooden floorboards sounding far too loud in the quiet. I could smell the damp air sneaking through the cracks in the frame. Who is it? I called. Oh, thank God, the voice answered. Closer now. Can you open up? We're lost. Who's we? My wife and I. Something in the way he said it made my neck prickle. Can your wife say something? A pause, not the pause of someone leaning over to call to their spouse, but the kind of pause where you know they're searching for an excuse. She's not next to me right now. Every instinct I had was suddenly screaming. The tone was wrong, too careful, and there was something almost artificial about it, like someone imitating friendliness, trying to lighten the moment. I called out, George, is that you? Another pause, then the voice said, lower now. Yeah, for a moment my shoulders loose. George was known for his drunken antics, but still. Okay, I said. Prove it. What's your wife's name? Silence. Then finally, that's a trick question. All my relief evaporated. My pulse was thudding in my ears. I stepped back from the door and grabbed my phone. Cheryl's voice was sharp now. Call the police. Call them now. Hold on, I said, already dialing George's number. He answered after 3 rings, his voice groggy. Yeah? Are you at my front door right now? No, he said slowly. Why? There's someone out here pretending to be you, trying to get me to open the door. His tone snapped to alert. I'm on my way. Almost immediately the knocking started again, louder this time. I have a shotgun. I shouted through the door, leave now. The voice came back. Calm, almost hurt. We just need to use a phone, that's all. Cheryl didn't wait. She called 911. Her words fast and clipped as she explained what was happening out here. We both knew it could be 20 minutes before anyone showed up. Then we heard it. Footsteps, 2 sets, slow, heavy, moving along the wraparound deck. The sound stopped near one of our windows. A faint rattle followed. Someone was trying to lift it. Cheryl screamed into the phone. Leave us alone, I shouted too, my voice raw. Get out of here, or I'll shoot. Only then did my mind finally clear enough to remember my shotgun upstairs. I bolted for the closet, hands shaking as I grabbed it. Before I could even make it back down, pounding rattled the door. But this time it was George's unmistakable voice. It's me, open up. I yanked the door open, pulling him inside. He had his shotgun too, rain dripping from his jacket. I didn't see anyone when I pulled up, he said, scanning the darkness beyond the porch. We stood there, every light in the house blazing, waiting. The silence was crushing. 20 minutes later, the police finally arrived. The officer did a slow sweep of the property with his flashlight, but found nothing. No footprints, no tire tracks, just the rain on the cornfields. Before leaving, he told us, get cameras, front and back. We did, but I still think about that night. How thin that wooden door felt, and how close they had come to being inside.
You ever have a night so terrifying, so surreal, that no matter how much time passes, it clings to your memory like a stain you can't scrub out? For me, that night happened in the summer of 2018, on my grandparents' farm, when I found myself face to face with something I still can't explain. People who weren't supposed to be there, wearing masks, chanting in a language I'd never heard. And it all started with the sound of the cows. It was late, close to midnight, and I was completely alone. My grandparents had gone out of town for a few days, and I'd been asked to look after the farm. Honestly, I didn't mind. I grew up visiting the place every summer. It had always been peaceful, almost too peaceful. A little island of quiet, in the middle of endless cornfields. You could hear crickets chirping, and the wind moving through the crops like soft whispers. The first 2 nights were uneventful. I'd made myself dinner, watched some TV, and walked around the property just to check on things. But the last night, that was different. I was sitting in the living room, with the TV on low, more for background noise than anything else. Outside, the darkness pressed against the windows, thick and still. That's when I heard it. A strange sound coming from the cornfield. At first, it was faint. A rustling. Maybe. I figured it was a deer. It wouldn't be unusual. The fields often attracted wildlife. I tried to ignore it. But then, the cows started mooing. Not 1 or 2, all of them. The sound was immediate, loud, panicked. A chorus of distress that made my stomach drop. Anyone who's ever been around cows knows that they're generally calm. You'll get the occasional moo here and there, but when every single one starts calling out at once, it means something is very, very wrong. I muted the TV and sat there, listening, my heart beginning to race. There was no one else here. If something was bothering them, it was my responsibility to check it out. I grabbed my coat from the closet, fully intending to step outside, but before I even reached the door, I heard it. A sound I will never forget. It was a scream, but not from a person. It was from one of the cows, high-pitched, desperate, and cut short, like it had been choked off mid-breath. My body froze. For a long moment, I couldn't move, couldn't even swallow. My skin prickled, and I felt cold all over despite the summer air. Whatever was happening out there, it wasn't just a deer. I forced myself upstairs to my grandpa's room.
He always kept a few firearms under his bed for protection. My hands were shaking so badly, it took me 2 tries to load his hunting rifle. I wasn't a stranger to guns, but I'd never had to use one in a situation where I thought I might actually need it. Outside, the cows were still in an uproar. I headed for the barn, my boots crunching on the gravel, every step feeling too loud in the oppressive silence of the night. The barn door creaked as I pushed it open, and a wave of warm, hay-scented air hit me. Inside, the cows shifted uneasily in their stalls, eyes rolling, bodies tense. I did a quick count. They were all there, except one. One stall was empty. I could have sworn all the cows had been tied up when I'd checked earlier that evening. Then I heard it again, that same high-pitched, strained moo. But now it was coming from outside, from somewhere in the cornfield beyond the barn. I moved toward the sound, but as I got closer to the edge of the field, I heard something else. Voices, low, hushed, but unmistakably human. More than one. That was when my fear turned to anger. I was alone, yes, but this was my grandparents' property. Whoever was out there had no business being here. I fired 2 rounds into the air, the sharp cracks tearing through the night. Instant silence. The cows quieted. The voices stopped. I was about to turn back to the barn when I heard it. Footsteps. Low, deliberate, coming from deep within the corn. My pulse was thundering in my ears, but I knew I couldn't just let them be. Farmers have guns for a reason. If there were trespassers out there, especially ones bold enough to mess with the livestock, I needed to confront them. I stepped into the cornfield. The stalks closed in around me, their dry leaves brushing against my arms, like whispering fingers. The air felt heavier, almost damp, and every sound seemed amplified. The crunch of my boots, the faint rustle of movement, just out of sight. Then I realized it wasn't just one pair of footsteps. There were several, moving parallel to me. I gripped the rifle tighter, my knuckles white. My breathing had quickened without me realizing it, and I had to force myself to slow it down. That's when I saw him. Down one of the rows, maybe 20 feet away, stood a man. He was dressed entirely in black, his face hidden beneath a mask. He didn't move, didn't say a word, just stood there, watching me. I lifted my rifle, shouting for him to get out of my field. Nothing. I fired another shot into the air. Still, he didn't move. Instead, he started walking toward me, arms slightly out, palms open, like he was trying to calm me down or maybe lure me in. I backed up, yelling at him to stop, to turn around. My voice cracked, betraying my Then I noticed movement on both sides, shapes emerging from the shadows between the stalks. 6, maybe 7 others, all dressed the same way, all wearing those same blank, emotionless masks. I realized with a sick drop in my stomach that I was surrounded. They just stood there, forming a loose circle around me, their silence heavier than any shout. My mind was racing. Was this some kind of cult? A gang? Then the chanting started, low at first, then louder, a rhythmic rise and fall that made the hair on the back of my neck stand on end. It wasn't English. It wasn't any language I recognized. It almost sounded like a song, but warped, wrong, like something ancient that shouldn't be spoken out loud. I could feel my heart pounding in my throat. My mind went to the worst possible place. Were they about to perform some kind of ritual on me? Without thinking, I ran. I tore through the corn, not caring which direction I was going, the stalks slashing at my arms and face. I could hear them behind me, the chanting growing fainter as I put distance between us. When I finally stopped, gasping for breath, I turned and fired 6 shots in their direction. The rustling erupted again, but this time it was moving away. They were retreating. I stumbled back toward the farmhouse, my legs trembling. That's when I saw it. In a small clearing between the rows of corn was a circle of candles, their flames flickering in the night air, and in the center was the severed head of the missing cow. My stomach lurched, and I doubled over, retching, shaking. I made it back to the farmhouse, and grabbed the landline. My voice quivered as I told the 911 operator everything. The masked people, the chanting, the cow head. She said an officer was on the way. I hung up and called my parents, begging them to come get me. My dad said he'd be there within the hour. The next 40 minutes felt like days. I stayed upstairs in my grandpa's room, rifle in hand, watching the yard through the window. Every flicker of shadow made my heart jump. When I finally saw the flashing lights of the police cruiser, relief nearly knocked me to my knees. I ran outside to meet the officer and poured everything out to him. He searched the barn, then ventured into the cornfield, eventually finding the grisly candle circle. That was enough to call in a full search team. By the time my parents arrived, the farm was swarming with law enforcement. I left with them that night, still shaken to my core. My grandparents took it serious. Within a week, they had a full high-tech security camera system installed all over the property. As for who those people were, I still don't know, and I'm not sure I ever want to. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. If it sent chills down your spine, please give this video a like, share it with someone who loves a good scare, and subscribe for more stories like this. Your support keeps these tales alive.
You ever hear sounds so out of place, so bone deep wrong, that every hair on your body stands up? For me, it was a slow, deliberate whistle drifting out of the dark from deep inside our family's cornfield on a night when my parents were gone, and it was just me and my two sisters at home. That sound still creeps into my head sometimes, uninvited, and every time it does, I remember the way the shadows moved that night. I remember the feeling that we weren't alone. My name's Howard. I'm 25 years old, and I live on my family's farm in the middle of Arkansas. It's not some big industrial operation, just a modest little spread we've had for years. My parents have always talked about me taking it over one day, since I'm the oldest of three and their only son. But truthfully, I've never wanted to spend my life here. I love my parents, I love my sisters, but farm life isn't for me, especially not after what happened last July. My parents had gone on a rare week-long romantic trip, leaving me, Crystal, and Morgan in charge of the place. I figured it'd be quiet, isolated, uneventful. That's the thing about living way out here. It's peaceful until it isn't, and when something disturbs that peace, you notice, fast. It was late one night. The cicadas outside had been buzzing all evening, the kind of droning summer soundtrack that makes you feel safe in its sameness. Crystal was in her room, taking an online summer course, her laptop screen flickering through the crack in her door. Morgan and I were in the living room, half watching some dumb reality show, the TV light throwing lazy shadows on the walls. We were talking about how none of us wanted to do this farm thing forever. Crystal dreamed about moving to the city. Morgan wanted to travel the world. And me, I was in the prime of my 20s. I couldn't picture myself stuck here for decades, tending field. But farms have their downsides beyond boredom. Out here, you don't just worry about coyotes or raccoons getting into your crops. You worry about people, trespassers, thieves. They're rare, but they happen, and when they do, it gets tense real quick. That's why we keep a few guns in the house. It started with the dogs. Our two outdoor shepherd mixes erupted into frantic barking in the backyard. Not just barking, snarling, yelping, like they were ready to tear something apart. I went out, figuring it was a stray animal, but when I stepped into the warm night air, both dogs were standing rigid, hackles raised, staring toward the cornfield. "Hey," I yelled at them. "Knock it off." They fell silent, but the silence wasn't comforting. It was loaded, like the night was holding its breath. Then I heard a whistle, slow, purposeful, the kind of tune someone might absent-mindedly hum while strolling down a street, except it was coming from inside the cornfield, and it wasn't random. It had rhythm. The sound sent an electric jolt through me. That was no animal.
That was a person. This was my first time dealing with a trespasser without my dad around. My first thought was to grab the rifle from inside, but when I told my sisters what I'd heard, they both immediately told me not to go running into a pitch-black cornfield. After some strange, they were right. The thought of those towering stalks closing around me, hiding whoever was in there, made my stomach clench. Still, I wasn't going to just let them lurk. I went back outside, the dogs still barking furiously. I raised the gun and fired a shot into the air. The blast echoed across the field, and for a second the dogs stopped, ears pricked. "Get off our land," I bellowed into the dark, my voice shaking but loud. When I came back in, my sisters laughed nervously, trying to break the tension. We barely got 2 seconds into a chuckle before the dogs went berserk again, louder, more frenzied this time. I stormed back outside, expecting to scare off whatever it was for good. But when I stepped into the yard, my heart nearly stopped. He was there. A man stood just 20 feet from the dogs, right at the edge of the cornfield. His figure was backlit faintly by the moon, tall and still, his face swallowed by shadow. He was just watching. "Hey," I yelled, the moment the word left my mouth. He bolted into the corn. I sprinted toward the dogs, firing another shot into the air, but I stopped short at the rows of corn swaying in his wake. There was no way in hell I was following him in there. Instead, I unhooked the dogs from their chains and hurried them inside. My sister's eyes were wide as I told them someone had been right there, close enough to touch. We called Dad. His voice was calm but firm. "Howard, you're the man of the house right now. Protect your sisters. If he comes back, fire another warning shot." Eventually we all retreated to our rooms. Crystal kept one dog, Morgan the other. I took the rifle with me. My window was cracked open, letting in the night air. I tried to distract myself with a movie on my laptop, but I kept glancing toward the field. That's when I heard it again, the whistle. Only this time, it was closer. I froze. The notes carried on the warm breeze, deliberate and slow. My pulse hammered in my ears as I crept to the window, and there he was, a figure moving across the yard's edge, just beyond the reach of the porch light. He stopped mid-step, like he could feel my eyes on him, and turned his head toward my window. The whistling didn't stop. It was the kind of moment you only see in horror movies. Except I was in. I grabbed the rifle from my bed, flung the barrel out the window, and fired into the grass just feet from where he stood. Dirt kicked up in the moonlight. The whistle cut off instantly. He ran, fast, disappearing toward the front of the house, swallowed by the dark. And that was it. He never came back. We never found out who he was, or why he was there. Maybe it was some local kid trying to scare us for fun, or maybe it was someone with worse intentions. All I know is that I've never heard a whistle the same way again without feeling my skin crawl. If you enjoyed this story, or if it sent chills down your spine, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment telling me what you think that guy was doing in the cornfield. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there.